super excited to have you on the podcast. I've been seeing a lot of your stories, on Instagram. So I guess for the people that don't know you, just go ahead and introduce yourself, where you're from, chapter, and then we'll kind of jump into asking you some questions about just your journey so far and how it's been.
Cool. Well, for those that don't know me, my name is David Soler. I am one of the founders of Alpha Zeta chapter of Spring 2000 in Chicago. So we were one of the founders in the Midwest, which was still a badge of honor for me because I feel like through us, we were able to expand to different areas, including California and Texas and Florida. And it's pretty nice. I pledged 20 years ago. So still around. You'll still see me popping my head in once in a while, but Para Siempre is a reality for me. I still stay active with quite a few alums and things of that nature. So
yeah, where do you live now?
I live in one of the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois. It's called Schiller Park.
Okay, great. So David, just looking at your journey, I'd love to learn. You lost, at least from what I've seen, you lost at least 100 pounds from what I've seen. Is that where you're at now, or have you lost more? Or
I'm closing in on 130 pounds total.
130 pounds. So I'd love to learn a little bit about just kind of your lowest point. Like, how did you get to a point where you needed to start making that change? Like, what was that like?
Well, so I'm a lifelong asthmatic. I've had it since I was real little. I remember going in and out to the ER. But fast forward 2017, I went to Spain on a missions trip with my church. And while we were over there, I got pretty sick. And I was pretty close to going to the hospital a few times while being in Spain. But the whole time I'm thinking, how the heck am I going to get stuck in Spain? I'm by myself, so I pushed through it. And I remember coming back, we had to make a transfer in the airport in Madrid. And my asthma was just absolutely the worst. My friends that were with me on the trip, they were like, we need to run because we have to make the connecting flight in Madrid. And I looked at them and I said, if I run, you might as well just leave me where I'm at, because I'm not gonna make it. Somehow we made our connecting flight with about 5 minutes to spare. And I came back, and once I came back, it started a series of hospital visits, which it was, bronchitis, pneumonia, the first couple of visits. And then I got a couple of infections because of the stays in the hospital. And then I would get an infection, and then I would get bronchitis, pneumonia, infection, bronchitis, pneumonia. And I kind of got to a point where I was just exhausted. In the trip was in 2017 was in October. I remember in the Christmas thereafter, I was with my family, and I was actually feeling a little bit better, and they were looking at me like, do we need to take you back to the hospital? And I was like, no, I'm actually good right now. But that just kept an ongoing series. And with asthma, there's a couple things that happen. You start taking steroids to control your breathing. And then that helps you gain weight. And then the mental part of being sick all the time, you start hitting yourself with comfort food, saying, this is going to make me feel better, or I deserve this because of all the stuff that I'm suffering. My body wasn't fighting off the sicknesses very well. It got to a point about I would say June of 2018, where I was in a hospital stay, and I actually was so tired. I remember that I started praying, and I said, God, if this is your will, I'm tired of fighting. I really just am. I don't want to do this anymore. And it wasn't that I was necessarily suicidal or anything. I was just exhausted. My body was completely drained. There was so much that I was constantly fighting off. It was like my lungs weren't functioning the way that they should. My weight was going up. I was approaching 400 pounds if I didn't hit it. I was getting infection after infection after infection. And it was at that point that after I made it out of that hospital stay that I knew something was going to change in my life. So that's a little bit of the backstory. But one of the things that I am truly grateful was that earlier on in 2017, I had started seeing an allergy specialist to help me treat and deal with my asthma. And she was relentless. And she said she wanted me to get the weight off so that I can, start exercising and things of that nature. But she sat in a medical conference and sat with a few doctors, and she told the doctors that she was going to get me to exercise and lose the weight that way instead of doing the surgery. And they all laughed at her, and that was like a challenge to her. So once I made it out of the hospital, lo and behold, they found a medication that was able to control my asthma, and I've been on that for about going on 2 years now. And then she goes, okay, your asthma's under control. That was at the beginning of 2019, once my asthma started being under control, and I had gone several months without getting bronchitis or anything, which was miraculous, because during the span of 2017 to the beginning of 2019, I was 3 weeks with bronchitis and 1 week that my body would just try to heal, and then 3 weeks with bronchitis. And everybody around me was just looking at me like, when is this guy gonna just kick over and die? So I don't know. I don't necessarily remember saying yes to starting to work out, because I just was kind of going with the flow. Like, I was so happy that I could breathe that I was like, I just shrugged my shoulders. And then all of a sudden that began my weight loss journey.
Yeah. One of the things that's really difficult is the consistency of going to the gym. So it's like, okay, you're breathing. Now you decided, okay, you're at the gym now, it's you kind of fell into it. But obviously when you start going to the gym and you start having to lose like weight, and how sore you get, and maybe like just the breathing and just all of that, like what made you keep going? Did you want to give up as you were starting to work out?
Well, it's kind of funny that you mentioned the consistency, because the day before I was going to start my gym, actually it's one of my best friends, he's an hermano as well. He goes to me, he goes, you're stupid. You need to just have the surgery and get it done and lose the weight and then go to the gym. You've been trying this so many times, and it just, I don't know if that stoked the fire in me to say, you know what, I'm doing this. And that was part of the motivation. Another thing is that, like, once I met my trainer, he put a lot of confidence in me and what he was doing. Like, he was so knowledgeable. He was so like comforting at the fact that, like, I was traumatized the first day when he told me to get on the exercise bike. First of all, I barely fit on that sucker. I was so big. I mean, and I was so out of shape. And then it's one of these machines that you're doing your hands and you're doing your feet, and I didn't want to do either. And he's like, don't worry, we're gonna go at a pace that you're not dying. And I was like, what do you mean that you're gonna go at a pace? It's 30 seconds in and I already feel like I'm dying. But he, like, afterwards, like, I had to take like my inhaler like 15 times. And, but like, he was like, you know, we're going to go at a pace that you're comfortable with. And then like, once he made me feel comfortable with that, he also introduced me to the nutritionist, which helped me with the food side. Because and I'm still learning a lot of like extremely bad eating habits, you know, and it is a very big learning process with your eating and things of that nature.
So you know, everything that you said, you essentially you surrounded yourself with a team, and it seemed like they started connecting you with the right people. Obviously you had to make that decision to even show up. So I'm curious, like, you know, there's a lot of people that want to start going to the gym and make, you know, changes to their, you know, to their life. And what some people do is they'll just go to the gym on their own and just try to like figure it out. And that it seems like that doesn't really work out, but it seems like you have accountability. You have someone who's waiting for you at the gym, who's going to tell you what to do. Then you have a nutritionist who's telling you what to eat. So did you, you know, going into that, were you like, okay, I'm gonna pay for this. Like this is what I need. You know, why didn't you just go to the gym on your own?
So it's a little over a year and a half later of me working out and things of that nature. And I would be completely lost still to this day if I go to the gym. I don't know. That's not my second nature. Some people, it's just so innate in them that they go in and they start lifting and they start doing whatever. I still don't have the slightest clue what I'm doing sometimes. So I do need that accountability. And I mean, I think that's knowing your own weaknesses and surrounding yourself with the right people, because like, not only would my trainer wait for me at the gym, there was one time where I wasn't feeling well, and this dude is FaceTiming me. He goes, I don't care if you're not feeling well. You're getting over here. Get over here now. Like, I'm waiting for you. And there was another time where I had the day off of work and I was being lazy. He texts me, and a lot of times I accuse him of not paying attention because he seems like he's not paying attention, but apparently he does. And he's like, okay, I know you had the day off and you got to sleep in, but there's a 4:00 class here. You're coming. And I was like, okay. So it was a much needed push.
Yeah. And so, what does your workout regimen just look like? You know, how did you start? Like, what did that look like? And then what is it looking like now?
Well, my workout regimen started off extremely slow. It was, you know, mostly movement, mostly trying to mostly trying to get my wind into me so I can be able to one, move, and then two, move consistently. So my trainer started off really, really slow. Although at the beginning I felt like he was throwing the world at me. At the same time, because it wasn't something that I knew or something that I you know. So I was going to the gym as just a personal training session. And the thing about it is that I was going to a CrossFit gym, which generally, like a CrossFit gym, it's group classes. And so I wasn't doing the group classes because there was no way in heck that I can keep up with them. And so I started off with that, and then I moved to I was able to move into the group classes. I still keeping in mind doing some personal training and then some group classes, because I mean, especially with all the weight that I had put on my body, there was a lot of stuff that I was healing from. Not only the asthma, there was different back pains and different aches that I had. Unfortunately, I had done a lot more harm to my body than I realized that I was doing during that process. And so I'm still in recuperation mode. There's still a lot to learn, but you know, it still keeps going forward.
So you started working out every day when you first started, or how did that work?
No, it was 2 times a week when I first started. And it was like if I did a Monday, it would be a Friday. And if I did the Friday, it would probably be like a Tuesday. You know, it was so gradual that it was like, but and I was the whole time I'm thinking, how am I gonna lose weight? You know, moving around the sled that weighs maybe 40, 50 pounds, and I don't even have any weight on it. I was like, I guess I'm losing the weight by just moving my own body weight. And I mean, that really was the concept behind it, you know, like get my body moving. And once my body can move functionally, then, you know, get to the machines, get to the barbells, get to the weights and, you know, things of that nature.
Yeah. And then now you're working out how often?
Um, well, I had moved up until like 3 or 4 times a week. Towards the end of towards the well, when the pandemic, when we were at the stay at home, it was practically every day, which was kind of cool because I had my little equipment here. I had my Zoom up, and you know we would go. But it had moved up to about 3 or 4 times a week.
Gotcha. Another thing that I think about when you first start going to the gym is like psychologically just feeling like embarrassed or, you know, things like that. How did you get over that?
So it's hard to find genuine people in today's society. It really is, because you know, like you go and you're like, you don't know if anybody's being genuine or if they're being fake. And so the gym that I joined, CrossFit Chisel, they well, all the CrossFit gyms, they're pretty community oriented. So with the gym that I go to, it's known for being the friendliest people. And I didn't know if they were being genuine or if they were being fake at first, but man, they were and still are so encouraging. Like it was ridiculous. And like my trainer, my nutritionist, although my nutritionist is a little more remote, she lives in she probably lives about an hour away from me. They are all so supportive that, you know, like I felt comfortable. Like it didn't feel like I was a stranger.
Uh, so when did you realize, like, when did you realize that it was starting to become a habit for you to go to the gym? Because it's like in the beginning, like you probably hated it, right? And you were probably waking up sore and you had to change everything. Like, when did you decide you're like, hey, like this is actually, I'm enjoying this, or I'm starting to, you know, just, it's part of my lifestyle now.
You know what? I try to make it my mindset from day one, because of the fact that I figured out my why before I even started working out. So it was my habit, my routine from day one. But I think it doesn't become your habit or your routine until you figure out your why. Why are you going? Um, Unfortunately, I had to be pushed to the brink of death to figure out my why. But you know, I just encourage anybody that is thinking about it and doesn't know their why, just at least start going. And then if eventually you'll figure out your why. Like mine was, I wanted to live. I wanted to continue living. You know, I sat, I go back on the day that I was praying, and I just like reflect on my parents, my father who's 84 and my mother who's 78. And I just thought, man, how terrible would that be for them to bury their youngest child, you know, after they've lived such a long, healthy life. Like, so, you know, my why was to live. My why was to make sure that I lived longer than my parents so that they wouldn't have to deal with that situation. My why is for my family. My why is for myself, because like at the end of the day, I feel like I can conquer the world. Like I really like have so many goals set in front of me, and still to this day, I have like a million things that I want to accomplish, and I can't accomplish them if I'm in a hospital bed.
Yeah, that's powerful. Um, so you hit, you know, another thing that is also very difficult is people saying like, okay, well, I'm 400 pounds and obviously you want to lose it, but what's your mindset when you're goal setting? You know, like, are you thinking, you know, X amount of pounds this week, this month? You know, what were you thinking?
Well, so a long while ago, I had lost a lot of weight real quick, and I gained it back really quickly. And then everybody like around me that was knowing that I was gonna start this process, they were like, okay, you know, so and so lost 50 pounds, but then she gained 70 when, you know, or so and so blah blah. And so I'm a numbers person. I studied accounting, although I don't work in accounting anymore. I but numbers is my thing. So I started Googling like what's a healthy weight to lose every week when you're working out. So my goal was to at least lose 1 to 2 pounds a week. And even though that was going to be slow, or it felt slow, then that was my goal. And then once I discussed that with my nutritionist, she actually agreed with me. And, you know, she confirmed like you can lose anywhere between 1 to 2 pounds. And excuse me, sometimes you feel like you gained weight, you know, that's normal. That's part of the process, you know, like you don't have that hold you back, you know. So I didn't want to set big goals necessarily. So everybody is asking me, you know, now that I turned 40, did I reach my goal? And I mean, I kind of did, but I didn't necessarily have this like this big goal. I had little battles that I wanted to win, which were 1 to 2 pounds, 1 to 2 pounds, 1 to 2 pounds, which I felt like I accomplished.
Um, One of the things about goal setting is a lot of people think of like this end result. And I think that should definitely be there. But I also think, and you brought this up earlier, is the things that you need to do is more so focusing on the actual work versus maybe the result. Because like you mentioned, that 1 to 2 pounds, there might be a week, 2 weeks where maybe you don't even notice the scale moving. Did you
Yeah.
notice that?
There was a few weeks that the scale either didn't move or the scale moved up a couple pounds, and I was distraught. Like I was like, no, that's not what because I'm a stubborn individual. So like I was like, that's not what I was accomplishing. That's not what I was like. I didn't stop eating like XYZ so that, and not that I'm on a strict diet, but like I set my own personal boundaries with things. And I mean, because I like it's part of knowing yourself. Like you should say, I had a horrible addiction to candy, and for about a good year and 3 months, I had not tasted a piece of candy at all, which was amazing because you would have thought I was a walking piñata, because I was always carrying around candy, always. So, but like those goals were achieved. There was NSVs, as I like to call them, non-scale victories. And, you know, I don't think you realize that until you start losing weight. And then, you know, but there's so many things that you accomplish when you realize what goals are out there. I remember, I'll share this non-scale victory. One of my friends wanted to go to Red Lobster for lunch. And I hated sitting in booths because I didn't fit, you know. And so it's so embarrassing for the person who knows that, and everybody else wants to sit in a booth, you know. And so my friend spoke up, my coworker spoke up real quick. Yeah, we're gonna take a booth. And I was trembling. And when I sat down and I fit in that booth without having to adjust the table, man, I was almost in tears. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that you don't like realize that come as victories.
Same with planes.
I'm sorry?
Same with
Oh, same with
getting on
planes. Yeah.
planes.
Yeah. One of my friends, I took a picture, a selfie on one of the trips that I took. And my friend my friend knows I have this thing with Flying Spirit because I get the tickets for $29 each way. But she texted me right away. She goes, "You should be so proud of yourself. You fit in that Spirit seat." And then I took a picture. I was like, and without the extender.
That's awesome. That's something that people I don't think ever think about. Like that's not something that if I go out eat with you, like I'll invite you, but I would never think of that situation ever coming up. Can you tell me a little bit about how you even got to 400 pounds? It seems like obviously like asthma, the bronchitis, like that was a big issue, but like, was it more of a, like a psychological thing? Like how does someone get to 400 pounds? You know, I almost feel like that's more of a mental thing, but I'm very curious to hear that.
I think a lot of times I just would convince myself. At the beginning, it was convincing myself that I deserved to eat it because my body was in so much pain or suffering so much, or I felt so terrible that I needed that Snickers bar, or I needed that whole pizza. You know, like it wasn't like it wasn't small things. Like it was like, you know, and is it okay to give yourself a break every now and again? Absolutely. Everybody deserves a mental break, but is it okay to stress eat every day? Absolutely not, because then you're not really attacking the issues at hand. So it does become a mental battle on top of the physical battle that you're facing. Like I was taking high doses of steroids because of the fact that my lungs were just shutting down on me, which one make you gain weight. Two, they open up your appetite, and then on top of that, I was patting myself on the back saying, "You deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve it." And was it traumatic? Absolutely, without a doubt. It was horrible. But you know, at the end of the day, I did a lot of torture to my own body without even realizing what I was doing.
Yeah. And when you said you pledged in 2000?
I pledged in 2000.
In 2000?
Yeah.
Um, and was it 2017 when you hit 400 pounds, or like, can you tell me that progression? Like,
So, well, in 2000 when I pledged, I was 19. So, had a whole lot of metabolism still going on there. um, and then I started noticing that like in my 20s, I started getting sick and I started gaining a lot of weight. Um, let's say I was like, when I pledged, I was anywhere between 180 and 200 pounds. And then up until 2009, or 2000, yeah, roughly about 2009, I was about 280 pounds. And then I tried Weight Watchers then, and then I had lost about 50 pounds, and I was down to about 230 pounds, and I was moving. Unfortunately, in 2009, I also got laid off from my job. It was the crash in '09, and I was quite a while without a job, and there goes that mental aspect again. You know, there was a lot of stuff in play. So I started gaining weight. I got back to about 280. I would say in about 2014. It took a while before I gained all the weight back, and then in 2014 it just began progressing up. And it was like all of a sudden every time I would go to the doctor was another 15 pounds that was being added. And you know, in my mind I'm thinking, you know, I'm eating all the same foods. Why am I gaining weight? And it's like the whole time I should have been thinking, you know, maybe I shouldn't be eating the same foods, you know, but like, you know, like you just you get so comfortable in your own habits and your own like you don't see what you're doing wrong. You're like, I don't understand why the scale keeps going up. I'm doing the same thing, you know, like it's not. And you know, but you're so focused on like other things and things. I don't even know what you're focused on, to be honest. I can't pinpoint like an excuse on it or whatnot. It just becomes such a part of your routine that you don't even realize that you're doing harm. And sometimes you don't even realize that you're gaining weight until you start either going to the doctor and seeing it on the scale, or the shirts don't fit, and you know you're I'm super sarcastic, but once I started gaining a lot of weight, I texted my niece. Me and her are very close in age, and we've always been close. And I said, "Hey, this is tragic. I went to the big and tall section, but it's not because I'm tall." And so, you know, it was harder for me, and like it was harder to find clothes, and you know, you start like hunting and trying to find stuff, and then you don't even realize till it spirals out. And then it was about 2017, 2018 that I just kept, I mean, I was in the hospital so much. I don't even know how I kept gaining all the weight in the hospital. That must have been part of the medication and the food everybody was bringing me. I don't really remember much of what happened in the hospital, but yeah, I remember that towards the end, I just I was so big that I couldn't walk. I couldn't walk half a block without getting winded, and it was hard for me to do absolutely anything.
What were your friends and family saying during this time?
Well, my parents are older Puerto Rican parents, so they were pretty blunt. But unfortunately, like their loving way of expressing themselves doesn't always come out loving. So my friends told me, you know, some of them would tell me bluntly. Some of them would try to be nice to me, or try to, like, you know, throw hints or things of that nature. There were some that were pretty blunt with me, and I always had an excuse, always.
And did it make you feel a certain way? Like, was there a certain way you wanted people to like talk to you? Did it even matter at that point, whatever they said?
I didn't want people to talk to me about it. It made my blood boil when people talked to me about it. I was so uncomfortable with the conversation.
So there was really nothing anyone could say. It was you going to the hospital and making that decision for yourself.
Yeah, I needed to find what my why was, and you know, I thought in my mind I was still in control because my habits were always my habits, and I didn't think that I didn't know what was, like I had lost control at that point. So you know, it becomes a situation where food is the addiction, just as drugs, alcohol, whatever ism becomes the issue. You lose control until you find out that, hey, I've lost control, and you admit it.
And what were the doctors telling you? Like, if you kept going at the rate you were going, when you were probably going to pass away?
Well, my primary care doctor was amazing. But I had other doctors that were like, they didn't really like advise me about passing away. They didn't advise me about, like, they would just come in and say, you're morbidly obese. This is terrible. You know, like, people don't realize that, like, you know, I'm suffering in a hospital bed, and maybe you should soften your words a little bit, or maybe we could reword things a little bit better. But my doctor was like, you know, my primary care doctor was initially pushing for the bariatric treatment or surgery. It was my allergist, and my allergist never put it in terms that made me feel bad or made me feel like I was ignorant or she never made me feel bad about it, you know?
And why didn't you go down the surgery route?
You know, initially I was going to, on the recommendation of my doctor, and then my allergist was, because I had so much confidence in my allergy doctor, she fought tooth and nail to get the medication that was going to treat me. Like, the medication that I'm using right now, if I wasn't the first person in the United States to get approved for that medication for an asthma diagnosis, I was probably top 3 in the United States to get approved. The work that she put into it, when she told me I was going to work out, I felt like I couldn't let her down either. Like, I felt like I took on the challenge that she took on. And so I made it a personal mission.
Gotcha. Sometimes it's really interesting where you do it for yourself, but it's also when someone joins you and you feel like you're doing it for them too, it's like an added motivation. So now you're like, okay, well, I could kind of give up on myself, but I can't give up on them. Was that kind of like how it was, or what did you feel?
At the beginning, it was like that with the working out. and then like I started, like I said, I started applying my own whys. Now, now if it's not my trainer, it's my nutritionist, calling or texting or, you know, following up with me. And, you know, like it's till this day, they won't give up.
Yeah, that's great. I guess any feedback for hermanos or just people who are listening about wanting to make that change in their life, and they just can't seem to get it?
Number one is always figuring out your why. You know, why are you doing it? Make sure you're doing it for yourself. Make sure you're doing it. Number one, make sure you're doing it for yourself overall. And I say this proudly with the hermanos of La Unidad Latina Lambda Upsilon Lambda Fraternity Incorporated. We have an organization that are full of great men that, you know, the older men have accomplished amazing things, and you know, we continue to bring in people that have the potential to accomplish great things. You know, so one, if you're looking for a why, do it for yourself. You have potential to accomplish so many great things that it's worth investing in yourself. And number two is surround yourself with the right people. Once you do that, you, I can't explain what surrounding, like, I know I didn't mention a lot my nutritionist, but I can't explain to you like what some of the text messages or what some of the conversations have meant to me, continuing and staying consistent and, you know, things of that nature. Like those people, those are indelible. Like it's ridiculous, like what the right people can actually do. And then like once you surround yourself with the right people, you get your fan club and your hater fan club, because people are waiting for you to like falter, and then the other ones are actually cheering you on. Don't worry about them, because you already got the right people that are surrounding you. You know, just go along. Like I posted my stuff not because I wanted anybody following. I did it more because I wanted to make sure that I had accountability. I wanted my this was something my doctor, like she was like, you need to post every week, you need to post every week, you need to do this, you need to do this. And you know, I did it more for that, because if you look at my social media history before I was like, you never seen one of my hospital visits, you never seen, you know, like things of that nature. You saw some family pictures, you saw some Bible verses, you saw some jokes, you saw some memes, and that was about it, you know. But you know, find the right people that you're going to surround yourself with, and I think those are key things.
Yeah, super helpful. And you did say know your weaknesses.
Know
I
your
really like
weaknesses.
that.
Yeah.
To then be able to like get the help you need, you know, to get you to keep going.
Yeah. And part of knowing your weaknesses is being honest. Like, drinking soda, you can say, oh, I'm only going to drink 1 can a day. That doesn't, I mean, that didn't happen for me, at least. I'm only going to have 1 Snickers, and this week it's going to be 1 Snickers. And then it becomes just 2 Snickers in that day, and every day you have 1 subsequently. You know, like, I'm only gonna eat 2 slices of this pizza, and then you go and you know, like, and it's not, you know, I'm not saying don't go and have fun, but when you know that something is going to be a weakness to yourself, maybe you should try to avoid it, at least for a while, till you form better habits.
I love that. That's awesome. So I wanted to also get into you being a founder of the Midwest, because I think that's really interesting. Can you tell us a little bit about how that ended up happening?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny, because I recently was kind of like having a flashback moment when I went to the informational that they had. So Gamma Zeta, the graduate chapter in our area, they started up in 1999, and they started having informationals to start up a chapter in the area. And I remember I walked in, and I walked into a room full of 30-year-olds, and I was like, And I was thinking to myself, my goodness, what are these old men doing here? And now I find myself, I'm older than they were at that point. So I kind of understand what they're doing there. But as a kid, you probably don't fully understand the concept of wanting to be around still. So it was kind of scary because there was a lot of established organizations around. And you know, I was up for the challenge. I apparently I like challenges. And it was a lot of fun at the very beginning when we started having different interest groups and things of that nature. I
And real quick,
yeah,
it was there was no undergraduate chapters. It was only a grad chapter at the time.
yeah, it was only a graduate chapter. There was only chapters, I think, as far south as Virginia, and the furthest west, or I'm sorry, yeah, furthest west chapter was Buffalo. We mapped it out once we crossed.
Yeah. And there was already a lot of fraternities obviously in that area,
Yeah.
and they got together and they were like, hey, we want to start, you know, essentially a chapter.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of that's a huge feat to like essentially start a fraternity completely new in a new area, right?
Yeah. It was quite the battle for quite a few years.
Yeah. And so tell us like how that first chapter started, like the first school.
Well, we started off as a city chapter because I pledged from the at DePaul University, and my line brothers were from University of Chicago, and then that was a little rough because we're our campuses are probably about 45 minutes to an hour away from each other, so we functioned like that for the first year. And then for the second year, we made it a little more complicated because we added 2 more schools with the second pledge class. We added Loyola University and Columbia College. So we just kept growing through our different networks after that, and the schools began to grow. It was about 3 years later that we got well, we had various interest groups from different schools throughout that time. A couple we made attempts to reach out, but for whatever reason it didn't necessarily work out. And then finally we were able to work something out where our chapter was established enough. We were able to travel more. We had older hermanos with cars and things of that nature. As undergrads, not everybody had cars, and moving. And we worked to establish the chapter at Indiana University after that. We would, they would either travel up or we would go over there and things of that nature. So we began the Midwest region at that point. Actually, at that point, I think it was the expansion region for quite a while. So,
Yeah. That's kind of how we are in California. You know, we have a chapter in LA, we have a chapter in like the San Francisco area, and we're still in expansion, and we're trying to get to a point where we're not, and we have a couple more. So like, I feel like I'm hearing like the experience of you guys, and I feel like that's kind of what we're going through right now.
yeah, you just have to, with expansion, I would just say you just have to know the character of every chapter that you're trying to establish. Because like the chapter that I established and the chapter at Indiana University, we were completely different characters, you know. So we just figured out how to work amongst each other, and then like that kind of clicked once the other chapters started coming along and the expansion started coming along. Like you realize that not everybody's going to be like, this is how it has to run and things of that nature. But it was a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. And so I would hear a lot of stories of bros going to Chicago, and just like there was a lot of going on at the time with all the different schools. I'm very curious to hear about during that time, the word elite became a thing, right? And I feel like it kind of like took its own, and Hermanos really bought into that. And I feel like it created an identity. So can you tell me a little bit about how the word elite came about and how that kind of transformed the fraternity?
I'm gonna have to give elite the term elite. The one who branded it the most was Christian Pena, back in, I would say, about 2004, 2005, and I think that's when he started becoming part of National Council, and that was his baby. I want to say he kept pushing it, and a lot of the hermanos actually ran with it, and Christian actually moved to the Midwest and help establish the chapter at University of Illinois too. So that's why I'm more familiar with him as well. But that was it pretty much started from there. Everybody at that time, there was a lot of organizations and they all wanted to be Lambda. And like, how do we distinguish ourselves from being the Lambdas or being because I mean, we were mostly LULs, but some people, because of the first letter, just say Lambda, or they would say the Lambdas, or how do we distinguish ourselves? And we always took pride of having amazing hermanos. We have doctors, lawyers, politicians, people that have accomplished so many amazing things that, elite just kept spinning off somehow.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily think the word elite is something that all hermanos now are very like open to embracing, just because of maybe the negative connotations that maybe come from it. But I was always very curious about that. And I do think it did help with our expansion and our brand, necessarily, because you're right, there's a lot of Lambdas out there. And so that was a great way to, I feel like, distinguish ourselves at the time. Is there any, I guess, other history or facts that we should know about the Midwest that maybe people don't know about?
That's a good question. Midwest.
Because I feel like every region, especially when it talks about expansion, like that's really rich history. And being in Chicago and being in that area, like, I feel like I hear a lot about, or have heard a lot about, the Midwest. So I'm curious if there's like, if there's anything that helped the fraternity in other ways, or just that area, because obviously, like, we've grown a lot more since then.
Yeah. You gotta establish your like I said, your identity. Like we were always very hospitable. I think that like the hospitality here, I can recount times where, the rule is you come here, you give up your bed for the hermano. Like that's let's see, one time I helped organize a step team to come here. I'm trying to remember how many hermanos stayed in my little apartment at the time. There was 4 in the living room. I think there was 3 in one bedroom, and then there was 2 in another bedroom. And it was probably about an 800 square feet apartment. And it was just, I mean, we all had a blast. It was, the Midwest is going to treat you right. And that's something that's our history.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I love that you shared that, so other people can hear that. Because I think the traveling, obviously, even pre-pandemic, like, I don't necessarily know if that happened as much as it probably did back in the day. So for anyone who's hearing this, that is kind of, I don't think people would even fathom to give up their bed,
Yeah.
to bros. But I remember I would give up. I was like, hey, like, if you don't have a place to sleep, you can at least sleep on my floor. And so I would have like 5, 6, 7 bros at my place, Great, man. Well, that was kind of pretty much everything I wanted to cover with you. Thanks for sharing everything. Really inspirational. I think really good I guess like feedback for people who might be in the same situation as you were a couple years ago. But a lot of it was really great to hear. Is there any kind of last thoughts or things that you would like to say to people before we kind of end the podcast?
I mean, I just want everybody to know that it's possible. Nobody ever thought that I'd be able to accomplish what I've accomplished. I've lost close to 130 pounds. I don't know if I even thought that I was able to gonna get to that far, but don't give up on yourself. That's my feedback. You're worth it.
I've seen a city of gold. I've seen a future untold. I've seen the people in need. I've seen their hopes and their dreams. But we won't falter in fear. We won't cry, we won't shout. We must rise for our peers and never waver in doubt. Because we are la unidad.